to let you know that we will be recording this evening. And so if there are any concerns about being recorded or your name being recorded, please let us know. And we will have this available for a later point. So welcome to this wonderful evening. My name is Dr. Delia Bakeman, and I've been an active member of the UMass Mind program for the last 4 years. I have the great pleasure of moderating our discussion tonight on the documentary Orchestrating Change, Music and Mental Health, which follows the journey of the Me Too Orchestra, the world's first orchestra for people with mental illness. If you have not yet had the opportunity to view this wonderful documentary, when you signed up for this program tonight, you should be sent a link in your email that will have the opportunity to watch the documentary, and you can always do that after this panel. I still think there's a lot of wonderful, rich conversation to be had and insight to be gained, even if you haven't seen the documentary yet. During our panel tonight, if you're an audience member, please, as we go, enter questions in the Q&A session. This is really meant to be audience involvement and wonderful discussion between panelists, so we really encourage any questions that you have. You can just go into the Q&A section and place your question there. We'll also have some polls given throughout the presentation. We'll see how technologically savvy we can be, just to get a sense of how the audience is responding to some of our questions. All right, so we're going to get started. So just a little chance to give you a sense of what our program will be like tonight. We'll spend these first few minutes doing introductions of all of our panelists joining us, and we'll do an audience poll. And then we are very lucky to have Sandy, the movie superstar from the documentary, playing for us and giving a solo performance. And then we'll be moving into the content of this evening, which will be a panel discussion between all of our participants. We'll conclude with a few resource slides related to where our panelists are working, and then just have some closing statements at the end. So hopefully we'll have a lovely hour together. All right, so we are going to start with our first audience poll, and we're going to launch it right now. Can everyone see this? Okay, and please go ahead and select your answer. I'm going to give it about 20 seconds, 30 seconds. So here we're just trying to get a sense of who everybody in our audience is joining us. All right, we'll give it a couple more. Almost everybody has voted. Perfect. I'm going to take 90%. That's a pretty good number. Okay, so I'm going to stop the poll and then I'll share the results. So it looks like so far 38% of our audience are community members. We have patients here with lived experience with mental illness and community members joining us. We have family members of somebody with lived experience, medical professionals, so really people coming kind of from all over, which I think generates the best kind of discussion. All right, so we're going to close this off. So just briefly, in case you haven't had the opportunity to see the documentary yet, we wanted to give a quick overview about the Me Too Orchestra, and the people joining us tonight will do a much better job than I will. But just briefly, the Me Too Orchestra was founded in 2011 by Ronald and Caroline, who are joining us tonight, and is the only orchestra in the world for people with mental illness. Happily, they have continued to expand. They now have 3 branches in Burlington, Boston, and New Hampshire. They are working to promote dialogue, dispel stereotypes, and destigmatize mental illness, which is no small task. And importantly, as we see all through the documentary, really provide that environment for orchestra members to do what they love, which is be together and create music in a supportive place. Orchestrating Change, which is our panel discussion tonight, is a documentary created by Emmy-Award winning producers Margie Friedman, who's joining us tonight, and Barbara Multer-Wellin. And over the course of 2 years, the film follows the musicians' experience in the Me Too Orchestra and tells the inspiring story of how this came to be. I'd like to introduce each of our panelists tonight, and I'm just going to have each panelist wave and say a quick hello. We'll hopefully be hearing from you quite a bit during the evening. First, we have Margie Friedman. Margie is an Emmy Award winning producer, director, and writer from UCLA. She's had numerous well-received television shows in received areas, and is the director of Orchestrating Change along with Barbara Multer-Wellin. So welcome, Margie. Thank you so much. And we'll try to spotlight and have you give a wave. All right. Next, we have Ronald Braunstein joining us, and Ronald is one of the stars of the documentary, is one of the founders of the Me Too Orchestra. He is the music director and conductor. He graduated from Juilliard and received the gold medal in the Herbert von Karajan International Conducting Competition, and has played a wonderful role in orchestrating this with his wife. Welcome, Ronald. Next, we have Caroline Whiddon. Caroline is the executive director of Me Too and has over 2 decades of experience in orchestral leadership, and is the former chair of the Youth Orchestra Division, and she and Ronald have been running Me Too together as a married partnership.
Hello.
Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you.
Next, we are very honored to have Sandy Bartlett joining us. Sandy is going to be giving us a live performance tonight, and she is a member of the Me Too Orchestra with lived experience, and we'll hopefully get a chance to hear her speak to that a little bit, and is a phenomenal flutist and one of the original members of the orchestra in Boston. Welcome, Sandy.
Hello.
All right, we next have Dr. Jeffrey Geller. Dr. Geller is the president of the American Psychiatric Association, and he is also one of our own. He is a professor of psychiatry at UMass Medical School and has served as a consultant in several areas over the years. Welcome, Dr. Geller. We're so happy to have you. We next have Kelley Gamble. Kelley is Vice President of Community Engagement for Open Sky, which is a large local organization providing assisted living opportunities to adults with mental illness and promotes inclusion, opportunity, diversity, and justice in our local area of Massachusetts. Welcome, Kelley. We next have Lisa Brennan. Lisa is the Executive Director of Genesis Club, which is an internationally recognized leader in rehabilitation services to individuals with mental illness. It's all over the world, but we have a wonderful Genesis Club in downtown Worcester. Welcome, Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be here.
We next have Val Comerford. Val is the Director of Recovery and Employment in the Central Mass area at the Department of Mental Health, or DMH, and has done a lot of wonderful work in long-term mental health and addiction recovery, and is using those to help support patients at DMH. Welcome, Val.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
We next have Rekha Poe. Rekha is the Adult Case Management Supervisor at the Department of Mental Health, or DMH, and she's worked in community health for most of her career, collaborating with organizations to make sure individuals are receiving patient-centered care. Welcome, Rekha.
Hi, everybody.
We have Dr. Elliot Pittel. Dr. Pittel is a practicing psychiatrist at UMass, another one of our own, specializing in child and adolescent psychiatry, and also an original member of the Me Too Orchestra, playing the trumpet. Welcome, Dr. Pittel.
Hi.
We have Dr. Shadow Fan, who has been a personal mentor to me for many years and is a researcher and director for the Psychotic Disorder Clinical Research Program at UMass. He also has done his master's in public health and has really helped run a lot of our community intervention programs and UMass Mine here at UMass, and is a big integral part of why this evening was able to happen. Welcome, Dr. Fan.
Hi, welcome everybody.
All right, so we have a wonderful panel here. We wanted to end with one more poll before we get to the discussion. So I'm going to pull it up quickly. All right, and everyone take about 30 seconds to answer again. All right, we're at 90% again. Everyone's doing a great job with their voting. So just to share the results, the question was about how many adults are diagnosed with a mental illness each year. And the correct answer is what the majority picked, which is 1 in 5 or 20%. All right, so we're going to close this off. And I want to open this up. I'm just going to change to a gallery view so I can see all the speakers. And we're going to open this up to a panel discussion. Before I get started with some of the questions we prepared, I just wanted to see if anyone in the audience had specific questions or comments based on watching the documentary. All right, so we'll let the audience ask questions as things go. But before we get into that piece, we're going to have Sandy give a wonderful personal performance. So Sandy, we're going to put you in the spotlight and we'll make sure to unmute you and make sure that you can, that all of us can hear you okay? So go ahead whenever you are ready. Thank you, Sandy. That was beautiful. And I think so wonderful that even still over Zoom, we can try to convey some of the music and share that among each other. That's wonderful. So first, we have just had some praise from the chats about the documentary. People just saying, you know, we watched the documentary this weekend, such incredible work, so inspiring. So I was hoping we could start with Ron and Caroline, and I know that you touch on this in the documentary, but I was just hoping that each of you could share a little bit about your experience in creating the Me Too Orchestra and what it is really meant to you, how you've seen it evolve over time.
So that's three questions.
You're right.
So what's the first one?
So the first one, I think, is what drove you to start the Me Too Orchestra?
Well, I'd conducted all over the place and won all the prizes, and I went to Juilliard and so on. But I reached a point in my career where I decided that what I really wanted was to make an orchestra with people like me. So people who understood what it meant to live with a mental illness. It gives me a space where I can be myself and I can be a conductor, but not the old-fashioned, authoritarian model. But I also can be a human being. I can be a friend. I can be a mentor. I can be any number of things. I even accompanied one of our members who got into a little trouble. I accompanied him through the legal system. And all of these things are really part of being a human being, not just a conductor. So it's given my life a meaning that a normal conducting position would allow me. So that's pretty good. So.
And Caroline, what about you? Is there, would you add to that? Do you have your own perspective on what Me Too has given to you?
Oh, gosh, I mean, I was led into this largely by love. There's no denying that, and people who saw the film know that. But I would also say that even without my relationship with Ronald, which really didn't start until after we'd known each other for a little while, the first thing that drew me in was his talent. And then after I recognized his talent, I started to have questions about his stability and his mental well-being. But for me, it was always a question of how do we, how do I and how do we, all the people around him, offer him the best support so that he can be the great conductor that he is. How do we help him with stability outside of just being on the podium? And of course, I was unfortunately at that point that I had to face the fact that some of the people around us just weren't interested in doing that. They were willing to sort of discard the conductor because they didn't understand some of the other symptoms of what we would later realize was bipolar disorder. And for me, that was never an option. He really needed to be on the podium, and I felt very deeply, even long before we dated, that the world needed Ronald to be on the podium. I was so deeply moved by his sheer talent. I think I just told you a love story instead of really answering your question. I tend to do that sometimes, but for me, the Me Too gift has been that I'm playing music again. And I do a little bit of playing, very little in the film, because I was mostly kind of scurrying around managing things. But for me, I had horrible anxiety and panic attacks as a younger musician, and had walked away from playing. And it didn't really occur to me when we started Me Too that I might begin playing myself again. I really was firmly entrenched in the management role, but Ronald, by way of creating this space that was comfortable for him and for other people, created a space that is great for me. And I hate not being able to play my horn right now, along with all the other wind and brass players who can't do this in a pandemic. But that's one of the big gifts, anyway, that it's brought me back to music.
Thank you. And we have a question from an audience member. How do you both feel having your story out there now? And what are the future goals for the orchestra? Again, 2 questions. I'm just hitting Ron over and over with 2 questions. But the story being out there, and where is the orchestra going in your wildest dreams?
Ronald, you're muted. Do you want to answer that first?
How
do you feel about your story being out there?
As soon as it wasn't that it just got out there. I was diagnosed when I was 30, and I didn't really think it was that serious, very innocently. And I would tell people about it. I never thought anyone would hold it against me. So I went along life just with this stigma following me along. And then this orchestra fired me. And I had to think at that point what it was about. It was about mental health stigma. So at that point, really being out there, it felt wonderful. One of the most freeing, I'll say lovely experience, just to not have to hide anything anymore. I wasn't really hiding all the time, and then it finally, opened up, but I just didn't say anything wrong with it until the stigma hit me in the face. And then I just felt, okay, it's out there, wonderful, bring it on.
And Delia, I can jump in and answer the other part of that question about kind of our hopes for the future. Because we as an organization have a wonderful strategic plan, which has been a bit derailed by the pandemic, but two of our biggest goals are to continue to build our affiliate program. We really want to empower musicians in other cities and states to make music under the Me Too umbrella. This is, a model that we've seen work first in Vermont, and then and now in Boston, and starting in New Hampshire. And we'd love to see it spread to other cities. And so we're working on developing the tools to empower people to do that. And then another glimpse into the future that I'm happy to share is that we really want to start opening up our world to choristers. We want to form a chorus or a choir, because we, love that format, of course, love choral music, but also we know that will help us to engage a lot of people that don't have a orchestral instrument. Not everybody plays the bassoon or the cello, but everybody comes with a voice. So I think choral music is definitely on the horizon for us. And again, we just have to get past the pandemic. But that's something that I feel confident people can look for coming from us, certainly, hopefully in the greater Boston area within the next year or two.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what a great addition. And I think that does open it up to so many, so many people being interested and being able to participate. We next have a question for Sandy that popped up from an audience member, Aiden. So Aiden says, Sandy, thank you for your wonderful performance. At what point in your life did you first become conscious of the therapeutic effects of music?
I actually became conscious about the therapeutic effects of music before I even got a diagnosis. I started playing when I was 11 because of band, and I had a lot of trouble with, getting along in school and everything. Like, I was a good student, but I wasn't particularly popular at all. And I was a very nervous type of person, and being able to come home and just dive right in and play. I ended up playing for 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And both for myself, it gave me something to work on that really felt good and really kind of was my thing. And, it was something that was kind of a refuge, and it was just something that worked really well with my brain, with how I express. And it also gave me a kind of little bit of a community where I didn't have one, because I got to, know band kids. I got to go to band camp, stuff like that. It was really helpful having that type of community and being able to play for my neighbors, because I would just sit outdoors and sit on the bench in my parents' yard. They would actually, if I didn't go outdoors, my neighbors would actually call my parents and ask me to come back out and play for them. So there was a lot of levels to it, but yeah, it started early.
Thank you, Sandy. And you just had another comment just thanking you for your story and your beautiful music. Margie, I wanted to turn to you. What a wonderful documentary, and we would love if you could share what inspired you for this particular documentary, and if you have a favorite moment, something that really resonated with you in the filming.
Thank you. Well, both Barbara and I really like to do and tell stories that will have some kind of social impact. So when I learned about this, actually from Caroline, quite by accident, I said to Barbara, this is the film we need to make. I mean, it's an incredible story, and it's also a message that's so important and really needs to get out there, because we all know someone living with a mental illness, whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague. As you said in your statistics, it's 1 in 5. And I don't think people realize that. And I think because of mental health stigma, so many people are afraid to share their stories or to even seek help because of the stigma. So we knew there was really an important message to be told in this. Gosh, there are several favorite moments that I have. I mean, I love at Woodside where Ronald says to the young person, you want to learn how to conduct? Come on up here. It was such a spontaneous, wonderful moment, but there's so many wonderful moments. I mean, I love it when Sandy's parents come to the concert and they're so proud of her and how much it's meant to them to see Sandy reach this point in her life and also be part of this. So that's another wonderful moment.
Thank you so much. I wanted to turn to Dr. Geller with a question. Dr. Geller is president of the APA, such a powerful society in our country. Where do you see music and expressive art therapies fitting into treatment practice as we continue to learn more about mental illness?
That's a good question. I think that they play a very important role, but the film was really about two coalescing factors. One was the music, and one was the sense of belonging, being part of something. And people with mental illness often feel an absence of that sense of belonging or being part of something bigger than themselves, and creating something that's meaningful. Some of the words used by folks in the film: less isolated, a safe place, always welcome back, a sense of purpose, so accepted, a measure of success. All those come together in this example of creative arts. There are other forms of creative arts that are more what somebody does individually, such as painting. But they all are a means of expressing something outside of yourself and sharing with other people. And I think that's why they play a crucial role. I should say, as a footnote, we've had music involved with hearing, since we've had people with any capacity to bang on something to communicate with one another. We've had music involved with shame and healing for thousands of years. So it plays an important role. It's a role that I think many in the profession don't appreciate to the degree of the value that it has to offer.
Thank you so much. Dr. Pittel, I wanted to shift to you for a moment. You have this very unique background of being a psychiatrist and also being a member of the Me Too Orchestra. And I was hoping you could share more about what that experience has been like for you and what you've learned from it.
Well, I share some similar background with Sandy in that I was in band my whole life, and I played it through high school and college, and then I stopped it. I dropped out, and I picked it up later as an adult, 30 years later. I had played in some community orchestras, community bands, and put a lot of work into it, and maybe 50 people come and they enjoy it and they clap for you. I didn't know what to expect with the Me Too Orchestra, and when we first started playing concerts, I could not believe that we got standing ovations. It was a totally different experience to get a standing ovation, and standing ovations from patients in hospitals and community centers and wherever we played. And so that gave me just a higher level of gratification, and it gave me a sense of purpose to my music. It helped me blend music and mental health, music and psychiatry, music and medicine. And it also sparked my interest in music and medicine that I probably had, but I never realized I had it. And it's also given me an opportunity to do some social justice kind of work. I think there's a little tinge of social justice intention for me. So it gives me an outlet.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I wanted to next move to Rekha Poe from Department of Mental Health. We would love to hear how you see the intersection between mental health and music, and what your experience has been within the group of people that you've worked with.
Sure. At the Department of Mental Health, just, we're at the kind of first beginning kind of like folks that are entering the mental health world in terms of supports, and we believe that recovery is possible. So, our job is to acknowledge that mental health is an essential part of healthcare, and we, folks need to be treated as such. And, through our Community First initiative and recovery through partnerships, DMH's goal is to do the early intervention and treatment through trauma-informed, person-centered care. So individuals are able to, manage their mental health symptoms and then pursue their life's, goals and passions. So we're kind of on the front end, getting individuals to get the right supports and services, and partnering with agencies and individuals, family members, providers to provide, the best community care and support, so that folks can then go on to live, learn, work, manage their passion. And I think, we also partner with folks with peer-run organizations that I'm sure Val's going to talk about and Kelley's going to talk about. That treatment is not just, it's a part of mental health, mental health. But moving on from that, as a person as a whole, you have life's aspirations. And what are those? So, working with partners in the community on a local and statewide level. And now, this documentary is just inspiring. And I know individuals who may lack the confidence and the tools, may have the fear of failure or acceptance or whatever it is, that there is, this is a truly inspirational movement. I think that people can start in their bedrooms with peers, local community groups, that, recovery through music is an essential part of who they are. And they have, folks that I've worked with have amazing talents, artists, performers, musicians. I mean, I'm so not musically inclined, that I admire a lot of them. And I think it's the opportunity that is, sometimes lacking. And it's our job as in the DMH world to sort of connect people to those opportunities and then provide the support through natural supports, family members, providers, to then pursue those passions.
Thank you so much. And I know, Carol, you wanted to add a little bit about Me Too and your connection with Massachusetts Department of Mental Health.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I love what Rekha said about recovery and recovery being possible. And I think that's probably one of many important messages that we want to get out there, because so many people, and we hear this again and again from our musicians, when they're given a diagnosis, very often they are not given hope that there will be recovery. So that's an important message for us, and I'm glad Rekha said that. But I also wanted to say that I think we're really fortunate. People may not realize if they were just seeing the film and that was their first exposure to Me Too, but we're now headquartered here in Boston. We did start the organization in Vermont, but we came here, Ronald and I physically moved to Boston because of the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health. And I think their, just kind of the general attitude of wanting to support and embrace artistic modes of support and these roads to recovery, these different pathways, is so, it just speaks volumes about what's happening in Massachusetts, certainly in the greater Boston area. We came here because the Department of Mental Health said, we love what you're doing, and we want to give you office film, it literally just off the kitchen. And now we actually have office space and creative space. The Department of Mental Health also supports Tomfoolery, another wonderful organization for people who are living with a diagnosis who want to create music. So just a little shout out there to the Massachusetts Department of Mental Health. There are good things happening, and we appreciate that help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And there were also some just comments about, how important this point is to really emphasize, and acknowledging recovery is so important. So thank you for that discussion. And moving to Val, I think to continue, this part of the conversation with Department of Mental Health, in what ways do you think, music can help those struggling with addiction and mental health? I know that the documentary speaks to this point a little bit with, some of the people who are highlighted. Can you describe, some of that, your response to that?
But I must say that today I'm feeling very proud to be an employee of the Department of Mental Health. And I want to know if there's a spot in the orchestra for a kazoo player. Because that's the only instrument I can play. And I can't sing either. But thank you for the question, and thank you for asking me to be on this panel. When you ask about how music can help those struggling with addiction and mental health, well, I see every day in my work where music can help calm people, it can help energize people, and connect people with similar interests, just as it did in the orchestra. And the beauty of connecting through music, unlike, let's say, if it was a team sport, there'd be a level of competition where people don't always feel they can succeed or measure up. But in music, really the skill is to listen. And I can connect to other people through listening to music, even though I can't play an instrument or I can't sing. And it does have things like that are in common with exercise, because it provides a healthy escape and a healthy distraction. I've had several friends over the years that struggle with both communication and with relationships. But when you put an instrument in their hand, they become confident and vibrant and full of life. And they talk without words. They communicate without words. And they're able to become connected to people in ways they never dreamed of. And I think that, this work is about, to add on to what Rekha was saying, it's about seeing strength in people. And there have been times where people have said, Val, don't you see that so-and-so can't do something? Well, I've been given like this special eyesight, I think. Well, I see what people can do. And I think that's what this orchestra sees, is what people can do and what they can accomplish. And I was so moved by and I don't want to quite call it forgiveness, but when people were to relapse and leave the orchestra and come back and go, welcome back, with open arms, and they were told that they were missed and they were needed, that chair remained theirs until they came back. And that type of openness and gentleness of spirit is what helps us to heal. And I hope I've answered that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. And we do have some questions popping up for Ron and for Carol, but I wanted to first get to Kelley and Lisa too, and just hear some of your thoughts. Kelley, I wanted to specifically ask you, what role do you, and Kelley is from Open Sky, what role can the arts play in helping individuals with mental illness integrate within the community? We've talked about it a little bit already, but your perspective on that.
Yes, thank you, and thanks everybody. I'm actually going to probably echo some of the comments that have already been made. I think the most important thing for me to say is that arts play an absolutely pivotal role in community integration and community membership for the reasons that a lot of people have said. Recovery very much involves the opportunity to have a valued role, to feel a place of belonging, as Dr. Geller said, or a sense of belonging rather. And for that reason, Open Sky Community Services for at least 10 years now has a nonprofit subsidiary specifically dedicated to arts and culture and bringing opportunities that the folks we serve can participate in, whether it's attending a concert on a community plaza every week during the summer, or participating or enjoying an art gallery exhibit opening side by side with other community members. And that's exactly what our subsidiary organization Valleycast does. And similarly, we have an approach to community membership that we teach all of our program staff to really help each individual figure out what their passion is, and then figure out a way to get them naturally connected in the community to an existing group or event or something that matches their passion. And so, we've also found that the arts communities are more welcoming and ready to be accessible to everybody, people of all abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelley. And Lisa, I want to come to you. Genesis Club is such a unique organization, and I think much like Me Too offers in many ways, a home away from home for so many people in our community. How do you see the people that you work with now using music or the creative arts just in their experience and in their recovery process?
Sure. Hi, everyone. We are a unique community, and there are an extraordinary number of artists within our community. We have about 500 active members, and a good third of them have unique and incredible talent. And so they're onto something, right? They knew this long before we started organizing around our arts program. So I think members intuitively, our folks that are part of our community are called members, much like an orchestra has members. I find that interesting. But our members have expressed the same sort of sentiment that Sandy did in the film, which was, when I play, it sort of uses up all the parts of my brain. I mean, there's this sense of focus that happens, that alongside of that is a sense of relief and release of other stressors. And so for a very long time, people have been aware of that therapeutic effect. So, so our members also find, I think, utilize their talents, their artistic creativity as a way of tapping into this reciprocity that is also part of being in a community, where it's not just someone receiving care, receiving treatment, but it's someone who's bringing something to the table, bringing something to the relationship, the friendship, the greater good of the community. So I think there's an acute awareness of that by our members. And I think they are also tapping into something that helps generate this sense of wholeness that often isn't found in other parts of their worlds. They're often, our members are going to treatment and seeking therapeutic interventions, but when they're playing music, when they're painting, when they're drawing, when they're singing, when they're playing their instruments, they're a whole person doing that. They're not someone seeking a treatment. They are bringing a gift to the world, and there's this common ground that they bring. And so I think our members are very astute users of the artistic arts and musical arts and creative arts as part of their healing and recovery, because at Genesis Club it is the expectation that people recover from mental illness. So.
Thank you. And I wanted to read, Dr. Pittel has shared a comment that I think is really lovely and important. So he had said in his experience, when I have a patient who tells me he or she can play an instrument, I really encourage them to use music in their life. I think there's an inner music therapist inside of me. I've worked with patients on keyboard. I'm currently trying to get one patient hooked up with violin lessons. And I'll just add from a personal perspective, I think that's so important. I think as psychiatrists, there really has been this kind of cold clinical world that gets formed where you go to the doctor and a pill is given to you, and there's this interaction that really lacks some of this warmth and connection and community. And I think that all of us, who are physicians, need to learn from groups like this and communities like this, documentaries like this, to really better understand the people that we're working with, and reach beyond medicine and use other tools that are much more effective, I think, and helpful and important in many ways. So we have a couple of questions kind of to circle back to Ron and Carol. So the first one is, are there plans, and I know maybe not in COVID, but are there plans for a concert with the 3 orchestras together?
Gosh, I was so tired after we did that one concert with the 2 orchestras together that I never thought I would have the energy again to even consider it. But I will say that there's been a lot of talk about it among the musicians now that we're predominantly seeing each other on Zoom every week. They are very eager for the pandemic to end and for us to try to get as many Me Too musicians from all of our locations together. So I do have a feeling that it's quite likely that once things return to normal, whatever that is, that there will probably be another big concert on the horizon.
Yeah, we, all of the members of the three orchestras, we meet on a Zoom call every week, and from all of the orchestras, and they get to know each other. So it's really become one band, one family, depending on your family. Also, we opening one in September, which is soon, in Denmark. So we're going to have Caroline put that on your list.
Thanks, dear.
And we have a question for Ron from an anonymous attendee. Out of curiosity, are there any difficulties during rehearsal, perhaps musically speaking, that the Me Too Orchestra encounters compared to when you've worked with other orchestras in the past?
No.
Easy answer. And another question from the audience, Lisa, asking any thoughts on doing this for teens? And I'll add like kids as well, any just thoughts on targeting other age groups?
Now I'm thinking about it. I think for Ronald and I, when we started this, we wanted to work with who we know and what we know, which is, working with adult orchestras. And we do have, we have had occasionally some teens who have passed through, although for the most part, our current makeup kind of begins in college and on up. And when we've had younger people try to join the established groups, it is kind of a weird social mix. So I guess I would have to say, honestly, it's not something we're thinking about right now, but the more it comes up, the more I think about it. So we'll see.
Absolutely. So we have one more just to, we had a couple more polls, but I did just want to mention Mary, who's one of our music therapists at UMass, also made a comment in the chat. So she just said, being a UMass Medical Center music therapist, I'm so pleased to see this discussion brought to the greater community. Not only are there many Mass music therapists working in mental health, but some of us are members, and you too as well. There's so much opportunity for collaboration within systems and across communities, which I think is part of really the whole point of this discussion tonight. And she said, I'm hoping this discussion will help to inspire more reaching across disciplines and expanding our networks. So I think that's lovely. So before we discuss just some of the resources from the different programs of the panelists here tonight, any final questions and anything the panelists would like to ask each other or final thoughts?
I'd love to take back my no. What was your question?
Do you want me to repeat the question they had written a moment ago? Give me 1 second, let me find it.
I think it was about musical challenges within the group, and if that's different working with Me Too and with professional.
Yeah, other orchestras.
Say that again.
So I think it was just the comparison of working with the Me Too Orchestra versus other orchestras in your past experience, if there are any differences or challenges between them.
No. The main thing is it's about breathing together and watching each other and moving together and getting them to be sensitive to each other and make sure everyone is feeling the same thing. So that happens on every level. So I guess the answer is yes.
Wonderful. All right, I want to end with one final question. This might make us run a little over, but I think it's worth it. So this question is for all the panelists. Anyone can take it away. Or, audience members can please speak to this too. But where do you think our society is lacking in terms of understanding, discussing, and treating mental illness?
Wow.
That's a loaded question.
Big question to end.
Yeah.
So who will start it?
Well, if we can endorse Ronald's one-word answer, everywhere.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Agreed.
Sandy, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna say everywhere because it's so swept under the rug and there's so many negative things about it still and so much really ignorant things said about it, like don't take antidepressants, go for a walk, all that stuff, and just the lack of talking about it to the point where people aren't getting treatment or people are scared. It's just, we need to do a real overhaul of this. And I think the first step is just to keep talking, like just stay out there and do what we're doing and just keep talking and hopefully, have this kind of spread more. I know that there's more, like there's some good stuff, like where people talk about it on social media. I follow a bunch of them on Instagram and stuff who are, trying to raise awareness. But I think the more that we're open about it and the more that we talk about it is the best first step that we could possibly do to, make it better for everyone.
Yeah, Patrick Kennedy, he's a real supporter of us. And he says the main thing is to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, Kelley.
Thanks. I want to echo that it is a pervasive problem in our society. And I think that a big piece of what I got out of the documentary are so many of the sound bites, for lack of a better way of putting it, about what the Me Too Orchestra does for people that could be echoed in the rest of society. Sense of belonging again, valued role opportunities, relationships, all of that stuff is so important for recovery, and it's really not, it should not be that big of an ask for our society.
There's a kind of interdependence in orchestra. It kind of, let me think how to say this. People depend on each other, and in a good way, because people are waiting or depending on you to play your part right, so that they can connect with you, and then they have to play their part right. So in a way, it kind of operationalizes the whole thing.
If I could go back to the question, one place is in language. It's interesting at a time in history when we are so careful in so many areas about language and terms we use, we remain cavalier and insensitive when we talk about labels. Nobody thinks anything about saying he's crazy, he's insane. Newspapers, headlines. We could really make a huge difference if we would pay attention to language.
Yeah, I even heard in the supermarket last week, oh, I'm feeling so OCD. It was the cash, she was putting her little packages in order, and she said, oh, I'm just so OCD. You know, it's gone into the language of the society, which trivializes it completely. I'm feeling a little bit sad. Oh, I'm in a deep depression. Why? Because your boyfriend left, or oh yes, I'm very depressed. I think I'm suffering from depression. Big difference. You know, all of these things. And the other thing that Patrick was very strong about, I remember him saying, what was it? You are not a bipolar. You are a person living with bipolar.
Yeah.
Because it really, it's very sad when you put yourself in a box. And that comes with languaging. Yeah.
Val, did you have something to add to that too?
I did. I feel like for the last several years, I've been on a crusade to become a better listener, to truly listen heart to heart so that I can more fully understand what someone's trying to communicate to me. And when I can do that, I think that's where change really happens. Withholding judgment, listening heart to heart, and just being there in a mutual way.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to briefly share a couple of resource slides from all of the organizations, many of them that are represented here tonight. And again, you know, if any audience members have questions or would like to see this in more detail, we can absolutely provide these things. Can everyone see okay? All right, we're going to do one more little poll we'll throw out. Okay, we got 100%. So everybody agrees that music therapy can be used to help with many, many different things: anxiety, depression, PTSD. All right, so I'm not going to go through these in detail, but just to show a little bit, you know, we happily heard from the Department of Mental Health, and really they're assuring and providing access, support, and services to meet the needs of individuals in our communities, enabling them to live, work, and participate, and really have lives there. So these are some of the central mass, just more local contact information. including Val, who's here with us tonight. We also have further resources on case management and different clinical services and recovery programs. In addition, we have Open Sky here with us tonight. You know, and I think we all really do share similar missions. So Open Sky, blending best practices with the power of the community, partnering with individuals and families to see and live beyond limitation and pursue fulfilling lives. And these are all of the different wonderful services Open Sky offers and some of the different people that they serve. Genesis Club, we got a chance to hear and talk about a little bit. So again, that mission, I think it's just nice to reinforce these missions over and over again to help people in recovery from mental illness attain employment, education, physical health, housing, and Clubhouse functions on this idea that work and relationships are restorative, and that these opportunities are a very important and essential part of recovery. And these are just some of the many services that Genesis offers. UMass Mind, just to tell you a little bit about us. So we have 4 components. We have clinical care, we do research, and then we do community outreach and engagement, which is absolutely my favorite part, and global initiatives, and aim to better understand the mechanisms of how illness works, develop interventions, and improve quality of life and community for those living. Specifically, we work mostly in psychotic disorders. So we do have an arts and music module and have some wonderful projects coming up in art and virtual drama therapy. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists. I'm sorry that we can't be together in person, but we were able to have a wonderful discussion, and hopefully we can mirror discussions like this in the future.
Great job, Delia, and everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone, this was fun.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you for all your wonderful work.
Thank you all for a wonderful evening.
Yeah,
Really
thoroughly
informing
enjoyed the
people.
documentary. Yeah.
Very inspiring.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, take care, stay safe during the holiday, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you for doing such a great job, Delia, hosting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very nicely done.
Bye.
Peace always.